So, Ruth, tell me about the engagement with the World Health Organisation on the Naloxone recommendations.
It was a very interesting process, actually, Leah. When I arrived, I had the impression that it was a privilege but also a right for people who use drugs or for INPUD to be represented at that guideline development meeting. However, INPUD didn't have voting rights, which was interesting.
Okay.
And I think that was something we discussed at some length, and I think that in the future, in developing similar guidelines, WHO will be thinking about how to ensure people who use drugs have voting rights on guidelines that are being developed that affect them. But I think, overall, that aside, the outcome was around resounding success. The main key recommendation that naloxone for community distribution be advanced globally wherever overdose is an issue was very clear, and I was delighted that came out. That was the main objective.
So what does that mean for countries other than Australia?
Well, when we look at obstacles to community distribution, they're many and various, but they tend to be related to scheduling. So in some countries, only doctors are allowed to give injections, or in other countries, naloxone is only available by prescription. But it's not universal. In Italy, for example, you can get it cheaply over the counter at chemists. So I think what WHO has done is to say once and for all, this drug works, it's safe, easy to use, negligible adverse events, and there's not a reason on earth not to be doing this to save lives.
In New South Wales, only people who identify as injecting drugs are currently allowed to hold a prescription for naloxone. What is the World Health recommendations around that?
Well, I think that they deliberately don't make any direct recommendations because there are variations across the world. But when you look at their critical enabling list, also in the guidelines with the new naloxone recommendations, they've actually come out and said decriminalisation is necessary if we're going to beat HIV, decriminalisation of both drug use and sex work. So for naloxone, that means that governments have to identify and remove barriers to community distribution. It's going to be up to drug user organisations and other stakeholders to push governments forward on this, but now we have clarity from the World Health Organisation on where we should be going with naloxone.
Right, we've got a hook to hang our hat on.
Indeed, yes.
Great. Thanks for that, Ruth. Much appreciated.